Thank you, Arndt, for already giving us an introduction to Foresight and Future Thinking. We have several participants who are new to this, and we welcome them. As Arndt said, we are building a Foresight practice in ADB, Foresight, and of course also the theoretical part, the Future Thinking practice. We are extremely happy to be here together with OECD, the ADB Institute, and MITE from Malaysia. And I just want to say, start with, why did we at ADB start futures thinking and foresight? Well, you might say, obviously, as a development organization, you need to think about the future and work on foresight. But to be honest, the way development banks often work is we have a country partnership dialogue with countries, and we have this dialogue and ask them, what are the development projects you have in your pipeline that need to be financed? So it's not necessarily the upstream dialogue that discusses what kind of investments are the ones that really change the future and create the future the majority of the people will want. It's more of the role of a financier. And that creates certain problems, because often the challenges we see is that the decisions for certain investment projects or development projects are influenced by short-termism. They need to show very quick and tangible results. So it's much easier to build a road than to do something that is maybe less visible than an infrastructure investment. We do have election cycles. We also have a great interest still in straightforward economic growth. And there is, to some extent, still a limited participatory process. Let's be honest about it. Also, governments have their agency silos. And have silos in terms of how to collaborate, coordinate with the society, civil society, academia, private sector, and so on. And all of this is against the backdrop of the VUCA world that Arndt has already described. So the challenges for us in this context are really also, we have limited resource envelopes. We want to have development projects with very high impact, and we want to basically have a triple bottom line where we invest in sustainability, economic growth, and human capital development. And that requires us now really to think about the future and create this kind of vision we want to see. And I think we are all also agreeing that with the way more complicated world we're in, we cannot say for the great leader to save the world, but it is and requires a whole of society and whole of government approach. And what we can see also in the COVID-19 response, and again, I'd like to take Malaysia as an example, where I've worked with the Ministry of Health, Dr. Fazila, who said, well, this is really the first time that government realized we need whole of society and whole of government responses to the pandemic, but we also need to do this way in advance to prepare for the next one and prepare for the future we want. So I think it was also a wake-up call, this current pandemic. We at the bank, we also use or see the opportunities to use future thinking and foresight to bridge silos and to bridge time horizons. And this brings us to the famous figure here, which is kind of the fundamental background or reason why we need to understand uncertainties and understand or try to understand future scenarios, because they help us to navigate the future and they help us to ride on the next possible trends and the emerging issues. And that definitely is required for us in the bank. So what we have done is we have engaged in workshops in a diverse set of countries, from Armenia, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, China, Cambodia, Philippines, and Timor-Leste. So very different countries. We've engaged in a set of foresight and future thinking workshops. I'm very honest, these have been really one-off workshops. Sometimes we came back 2 times to the country, but it was really an initial testing of the interest of our counterparts in this kind of dialogue with the Asian Development Bank. We shared examples from other countries, for example, from Finland, from Thailand, from Malaysia, Singapore, and Australia. And then we have experimented with bringing together experts, participants from the highest government level. In Timor-Leste, we worked with the Prime Minister's office and the entire cabinet. We worked with civil society, academia. In Mongolia, we reached out to the media. We worked with specific sectors, urban development, for example, in Armenia, agriculture in Kazakhstan, and we also looked at specific geographic areas. So we tested a different set of engagements, and we used a variety of tools. Those of you who are familiar with the arsenal of future thinking and foresight, they know that we look at sensing, mapping, anticipation, timing, deepening, creating alternatives, and transformation. I'd like to invite you to look at our book, at the Asia Pacific Futures Handbook, which provides a very easy description of possible tools that we can use and engage in these various workshops. And I'd like to take you now on a quick journey and share with you some of the discussions that we had in the countries. So for example, on scenario development, we worked with mayors and government agencies in Armenia. It was extremely interesting how this Futures of Foresight workshop brought together the old generation of government officials with the new and next generation of the government officials. This was just after the Velvet Revolution last year. Obviously now government's going through different difficulties. And it was interesting how through a course of workshops, the very diverse participants agreed that the most welcome scenario would be something which they called welcome to paradise, where Armenia becomes the place to live, where startups will flourish, where people have the possibility to live healthy lives in clean cities. So this was an interesting journey. If you want to learn more about it, please visit the handbook. In Kazakhstan, we had fascinating discussions. We presented, and Sohail was there, to the Prime Minister and the cabinet. And that, I have to say, was an interesting, also difficult engagement. But then in the afternoon, we engaged with a very young group of government officials, and we developed scenarios in various sectors. And one which I found fascinating was in urban development and waste management. And throughout the course of the workshop, the participants of this group developed new metaphors of what Kazakhstan could be. So it was basically from wealth and oil and natural resources to let's invest in waste. Do not waste time, invest in waste became one of the metaphors and slogans. Waste is the new oil. Because they said, well, we have so much land in Kazakhstan, we can basically use technology and become a waste recycling platform for the world and develop latest technology for waste management. We also used backcasting, and there, I'm not going into details here from the example from Armenia, but interesting was how we brought different agencies together to do backcasting together to achieve a certain vision that they had developed. And that was interesting. We even went further and deeper and used causal layered analysis developed by Sohail Inayatullah. And in a workshop in China, we looked at relationships between the bank and China and how they could change, and developed new models of ADB's engagement, which would focus more on knowledge and innovation and demonstration projects and quality. So it was also an interesting tool to understand the facts, the environment, the context of new opportunities for, or deepen opportunities for ADB to engage in knowledge. I will share these slides with you. I'm not going in detail through the summaries here, but they give us maybe a quick overview of how many people participated and what we got out of it. In Armenia, our work on these workshops led to informing our urban development program and pipeline, and is now leading to very holistic and integrated investments in urban development. In Mongolia, the discussion was interesting, especially with the central bank, and I'm happy to have Batyan here from the central bank to share his experience. I think it was good to see how a very data-driven organization like the central bank, where our economists' work also can utilize creativity, imagination for scenario development. Another interesting feedback from Mongolia was where we worked with the media, that the media said, well, how can the media play a bigger role in future thinking and foresight? How can we create participatory futures, communicate them, and hold politicians and government accountable to them? I thought that was a very interesting dialogue. In Timor-Leste, we applied future thinking and foresight, and Arndt was involved in it in our water and sanitation sector, and we tried to unlock constraints which made it so far impossible to channel big investments into the water sector development. And we hope that these workshops would help the participants to equip them with arguments for their dialogues with their leaders, to ensure that they understand water sector investments are important for the future of Timor-Leste, not only for public health, but also for the economic development. So going forward as ADB, we really want to expand the future thinking and foresight practice. We need to build more networks and partnerships. So whoever is here and interested to reach out to us and work with us, please let us know. We are working with OECD, obviously, with the UN, UNDP. We do hope that the ADB Institute might offer capacity development on futures thinking and foresight next year. And we want to intensify these efforts and build these relationships with our government counterparts through ADB's proposed innovation hub, and offer it as one of the service lines, and inform our country partnership strategy and our dialogue with countries with future thinking and foresight to help create a preferred future. Thank you very much.